HST. Think fast, 'cause here comes the award-winning Ukulele Underground podcast.
And so I told him, I'm like, I'm a 2-time podcast award winner, so you can't treat me that way. Oh, hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to the Ukulele Underground podcast. My name is Aldrine Guerrero. Joining me are Mr. Aaron the Voice Nakamura. Say what's up, Aaron?
What's up?
And Mr. Kahai the Legend Fergan. Gentlemen, it is time for the Ukulele Underground podcast. Kahai.
It's open mic with open mic. I'm gonna make you mad. I don't care what you think.
It's Magic Guy Mike, everyone. How's it going, Magic Guy Mike?
I'm pretty good, guys.
Magic Mike, how's it going? Ooh, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Just happen to be in town.
Totally weren't expecting you.
I was just on that side of the room, and I thought, hey, I should stop in.
What's up, man? It's a holiday today.
It is a holiday.
Yeah. So for those of you folks who don't know, this is Magic Mike Odo. Hey. Music theory extraordinaire. He went to music school and stuff, I hung out at a music school before. He actually went there, he studied, I think, right?
Most of the time, yeah.
Most of the time,
he attended some classes.
I woke up every once.
He is a local teacher here on Kauai, and who's watching the kids? If you're here, who's watching children?
Their parents, because it's a day off.
Martin Luther.
Yes. MLK Day. So.
Right on. So happy MLK Day, everyone. What's your favorite MLK quote that isn't "I have a dream"?
Oh, jeez.
Okay, wait. We're going to pause right there, and we'll be back after a commercial break.
Okay. Yeah, so there I was. I told the guy, I'm like, I'm a 2-time award. Oh, hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the podcast. So, welcome back, everyone. What's your favorite MLK quote?
Gosh, there are a lot. I mean, obviously, everybody picks "I Have a Dream,"
right?
But there are a lot of other stuff within that same speech that also resonates. Mm-hmm. Specifically, like the part of the speech where he's talking about he hopes that there's one day where his children will be judged by the content of who they are, not by the color of their skin.
Yeah, that's right. As a guy who's pretty dark, I'm like, oh, I like that. I love that part. I love that part in that speech. I've walked around in the mainland, and sometimes I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
We still got a ways to go. But.
Yeah, we do. But you know what? I felt fine as long as I just stay in the right places.
The hotel.
That's all good, man. Happy MLK Day, buddy.
Absolutely.
All right. So, Kai, what do you want to talk about?
So last week, I think it was last week, Genevieve kind of left this on the chat, and then we were going to talk about it, but I kind of forgot. So I thought we could maybe talk about it today.
Okay, sounds good.
So she said, I wanted to do a major kudos to Aldrine. At today's live coaching, I asked how he was able to watch us play just once and be able to play the song back and make suggestions for different parts of the song after just hearing it once. He's done this several times. He's amazing. Wow, thank you. And she asked you, how do you do that? How do you watch somebody, I think in that situation, it was watch somebody play something and then get an idea and then play it back, and kind of approximate what it should sound like.
Okay, one, it's the full context. I actually knew the song that she was showing me. We were working on Time After Time, and I told her that I was actually working on my own arrangement for Time After Time a while back. And then Jake came out with Time After Time, and I'm like, okay, well, never mind. I was like, yo, same key and everything. I'm like, I'm not gonna keep doing this, this. It's already been done. It's like imagine trying to find a cure for cancer. And you're like, I'm almost there, and then comes out what's this pill? Oh, it cures cancer. Oh, well, never mind. So anyway, So to be fair, I already kind of knew the song. I knew, like, and she was playing the same key that I was arranging it. But regardless, if even if I didn't know the song, there's still a lot of elements that come in mind to help with students in figuring out stuff and helping them with their with their arrangements. All right. So the first thing that I'm gonna say is repetition. Like I see a lot of students. I see a lot of like tech checks, which is like technique checks that we do here on Ukulele Underground. So there are a bunch of stuff that I already looked for, and if it checks one of those boxes, I'm gonna make that comments. Yeah. First off is how you're holding the ukulele. Like a lot of the times, some of the chordings and some of the lines that you would play on your ukulele get hindered if you don't hold your ukulele correctly. Honestly, like if say like the wrist is not relaxed, is not straight, you're gonna have a hard time holding some chords or moving your fingers. You kind of have to think how your fingers and joints and your wrists is all connected together, that if something is in an awkward position, it makes it harder for the rest. So I'll always take a look at those, how you're holding the instrument. Okay, that's right off the bat. Second, I usually ask what key it's in if I don't figure it out myself. If I'm watching you and I see 3 major chords, it's a pretty telling, like of what key you're going to be in, or 3 minor chords even, right? If I see any one of those, I'll know what key you're in. So if you're playing a note that isn't in that, in that key, then I'm going to make a comment on that. Or if if there is a note that's there, but it's not accompanied by a chord that would allow that note to ring out correctly, then I would definitely make a comment on that. Yeah. And then if I see an arrangement that is doing so, and as an ukulele player, I've tried to figure out every which way possible to go from, say, F to G, right? Or F. Let's just say F to G. Okay. If I see somebody doing it in I'll know when it's in an awkward way, kind of thing. So I'll make comment on that. I'm like, okay, well, why? And then, I won't make it the student's fault. I'll always be like, okay, well, what did the arranger, or where did you get that arrangement from? And I wonder why they approached it that way, because there might be a reason. You never know. Like sometimes, you put yourself in awkward positions so that later on in that line, it's a lot easier to achieve, follow up chords or notes and stuff. So I'll always look for those things. And then the last thing I look for is how you're phrasing it. Maybe it's just a lot of times students just say that, like, well, I'm playing it, but it's just not coming out correctly. Mm-hmm. So same thing, I'm gonna look at how you're holding the instrument. If the way that you're holding it is awkward, that's gonna make you like lift up too soon. It's gonna stop those lines. It's not gonna let it like ring out as much as possible. And if it's none of that stuff, then that's when we kind of dig in a bit further. So I do have my checklist of what I look for and what the student is doing. And then I offer the advice according to where where you kind of land. You're like, okay, I see the problem is this, and I'm sure like anyone who tries to fix stuff like mechanics or like computer, like techs and stuff, they'd be like, okay, did you try turning it off and on? Like it's things like that. Like there's some checklists that people do, and because I've been doing it for, well over a decade, almost 2 decades, like at this point. Like I can see things and already and I know like the most common problems. So I'll always go through those first before, I see something that like, okay, well, I'm not quite sure what's going on here. And then, but that does happen. And we always just dive in a little bit further so that we can, we can really get to the bottom of what's going on. But that's how I do it. Yeah. I think tech checks.
Well, I think the big thing that Genevieve was saying that she was astonished by, or kind of like, how do you do this, is like when you can watch them play a song and then when you're breaking down back to them like, oh, you want to try this and this, is like you can replay the song without having any experience, because like with this song in particular, Time After Time, you did have experience.
I did know it, yeah.
But there's other times too where they're playing songs that you don't know, and then you can just be like, I think you did a run like this, or you play chords like this.
So kind of like the challenge videos that we've done, where we show you something that you haven't seen before, and
Yeah.
you just got to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that same thing, like repetition, of course. Like I might see those particular lines, those particular chord changes, or those particular phrases in a bunch of other songs or solos or improvs that I've done before. So I can kind of see where that's coming from, so I can emulate like what you did, at least as as close as possible. I don't always get it perfect, but I know where it's going. I can kind of read like somebody's hands, like, oh, they're trying to do this line, for example, so I can always go that way and then play it back, only because it's probably similar to a bunch of lines that I've played in the past. So it really is just a lot of like doing it over and over and over and over. And I'm sure any teacher, anyone who's ever taught like before, like elementary school, high school, or done like lessons of any kind, the more you do it, the more you're just like, okay, well, like I know what my students are gonna bring up. I know like what kind of problems, or what kind of like what kind of songs or what kind of lines is gonna be coming up.
Yeah, I think it's like the reason why people, I mean, it is like very impressive, but I think the reason why people think it's so impressive is because from their experience, they're like, I'm learning songs, and when I learn a song, those chords are for that song specifically.
Yeah.
Not thinking that it's like, well, I know about 10 other songs that maybe use chords that are pretty similar to that.
Yeah.
Or if I know that if this chord, like if A7 is played, then I can kind of guess like maybe a D7 is going to come up next, or in the chord pattern somewhere. So it's like you kind of have a frame of reference right from there. It's like you're not just pulling it out of nowhere, or using your you're not doing like a photographic memory of like, okay, I'm taking a picture exactly what they're doing and I'm just replaying it.
Yeah, it's like chord progressions are a thing, and they're very, very, very common. I mean, like, it's pretty rare for a song to not have a chord progression that I've at least seen once or twice. Like, it's very rare, unless you're playing giant steps or something. And even then, it's like a 2-5-1, 2-5-1 into a 2-5-1 into another 2-5-1. So it's a lot of at least like pop or American or Western music, you can pretty much guess where it's gonna go pretty easily. Not easy, but if you played enough, like it tends to be easy.
Yeah, I think like a lot of songs it's like 8 bars, right?
Yeah.
And so if it's like you can remember the chords in those 8 bars, it's like, okay, I got it. Like I can repeat that. And then at first, I think most people like start off with like, oh, maybe I'm only memorizing chords for like songs where it changes every 4 bars or something. And then that's great, right? But then you kind of expand. And then it comes to a point where it's like, can't remember songs where it might have a weird change in the verse or the bridge or something. So when that comes up, it's not really gonna surprise me, and it's only gonna surprise me if it's really weird.
And your ear like kind of adjusts to like hearing a major or a minor, like, and hearing chords that are outside the chord family, and definitely inside the chord family. You're like, oh yeah, that's this chord. That's like a 6 or a 2 or a 1, 4, 5 or whatever it may be. But if it sounds like it's outside of the chord family, even more so, you're like, okay, that sounds like something that doesn't belong there. So it could be this, or where's it going to? Like, I always ask a lot of those questions, like, okay, where are you coming from? And then where are you going to? Okay. And, like if for some reason, say like we're in C, and then you hear like this like A7, it's like, okay, well, that's going to D minor, like that. It can only go like to that, or it can only go to so many places, right?
Yeah. Well, it's more like it's a high chance.
Yeah.
You could always get someone who decides.
It goes somewhere else.
I'm going to totally do this because it's supposed to, because everybody's going to expect it to happen. And that is true.
Yeah.
That does happen, but
Guilty.
And
I've done that.
In a way, when that happens, because it's so surprising, you probably will, like, if you're playing along with somebody, you'll take note and be like, anytime that person plays like A7, I gotta be on my toes for knowing what the chord is gonna come up.
Yeah. Actually, maybe to phrase it a different way, like if somebody wanted to develop that skill to be able to just see somebody else play and then at least know where to start or like be able to eventually be able to kind of like replicate what they did.
Yeah.
Like what would you recommend, like I guess both of you, what would you recommend them do to train themselves to be able to do that?
Practice. No.
I mean, definitely
Yeah.
practice. Like getting to know your chord family. Like that's, I feel like number one, because like I said, your ear will begin to understand like the relationships between the all the chords within the chord family and what and like I said, the difference between major and minor, yeah, and then the role of 1, 4, and 5, like in respectively, and then like the role of 2, 3, and 6 and where they fit and how they sound like and what the major counterpart of each one of those are. That's just 6 chords, yeah, and then if there's a chord that's not in there, like I said, because you know those 6 chords really well, then you then start to begin to understand like, okay, what that chord could be based on where it's coming or where it's going. But my best advice, if you want to get that kind of skill to be able to follow, get to know and no one wants to hear it, but it's like you got to practice your scales and you got to practice your chord families. Like,
So probably you would start with the common chord families. then?
yeah, like C, G, F, A, D, like starts with that,
Yeah.
So in C, you'll know that C, F, G are the majors. You're gonna know that D, E minor, and A minor is going to be the minor chords in that. And you don't even have to think of the B diminished. Like you could just leave that alone for a little bit, So just focus on those, on those 6 chords, the 3 majors and 3 minors of that. And then listen to their relationship. And I've been preaching this for however many years now of like, listen to how the 1 sounds like and how it sounds like home. 4 sounding like the destination. G is like the way home. The 5 is the way home. And knowing how to identify those kinds of sounds will help you identify like the 3 major chords already. Okay. And once you can kind of, get your ear used to hearing those in that key, change the key, like D, G, or D, or F, or A, and
Or eventually all of them.
and eventually all, because they're all gonna sound the same, like if
Relative to each other.
relative to each other, like
within that key.
and if you're playing G, for example, the key of G is gonna be your home. And D is always gonna sound like that, like the way home going to G, and C is gonna sound like that destination. So if you want to just start out with just the majors, like figuring out what each major chord and the role is in the scale or in the chord family, like that's already like a lot. Like you can follow a lot of songs by just knowing the roles of each major chord in the key, or a major chord in the key. So that when you hear a major chord that isn't in the key, you're like, yeah, that's not there. You know what I mean? And you can then start to like, okay, well, where am I going? Is it going to, is the next chord after that 5? Then it's probably going to be a major 2, because, like the major 2 usually leads to the 5, which then wants to go back home to the 1.
Right.
Like it's that. Like if you hear something that's not there, but you still identify it as major, then it's a lot easy to identify what chord that is.
Right.
Yeah.
So then after you kind of get your head around chord families, then what would you do? What would be the next step on learning how to be able to do that?
Put on a song, put on a song, know what key it's at, just the key, know what key it's in, and then and then try to figure it out, try to jam along, like based on what you hear with your ear. As long as you know what key and your ukulele is in tune, just play it, because there's no substitute for like actually doing it and actually play. You can learn as much as you can. You can like try to practice, but you gotta do it.
I would argue that you should actually do that, like do it in conjunction with learning the families and the scales. Is like use them in songs, because there are definitely people that we tell like learn chord families or learn scales, and they start playing it and practicing it, and they can run the scales and stuff. but they don't have that skill set of like being able to like look and match somebody else and play what they're playing or apply it to a song, right? Because they just know like the mechanical side of it.
I think the reason for that is that people oftentimes, you get this a lot with students. You tell them, practice your scales and your chords, and they're why.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, sometimes when they're young, you just say because you should know it. But that's not a good. But that's not really a good reason.
Yeah.
You know what I tell my kids is that learning all your scales and all your chords is valuable because everything else you're ever going to want to play is created from that. There's no music. I'm not going to say no. I should say most music on this planet is created from scales and chords. So if you understand the scales and the chords, when you hear the music, you'll understand what's happening. You know, before you know anything else. And another skill that I think is actually really important is something we would call like active listening. Meaning, so like, when you your suggestion, put on a song. First time, don't even have your ukulele, because then you're doing two things. You know what I mean? Close your eyes, whatever. Listen to that song. Listen to the motion. What's happening? Is the sound going up? Is the sound going down?
Very good. Very good.
A big one. You said the majors and the minors. A lot of people at the beginning can't tell you the difference. Now, if I tell you this is an A minor and this is an A major, I play them right next to you.
Yeah.
You could say, "Oh, that's different."
Yeah.
But then,
In the context
of a song, sometimes it's harder to tell, especially if you just don't necessarily yet have those hours in your ears. So then listen. Is it that major? Is that minor? If you're using 4-note chords, is that a dominant 7? Because when you're talking about the way home, when you add that 7, it adds that dissonance,
tension,
which really even more pushes it back.
I need to go home now. I gotta pee. I gotta pee.
You add the pee-pee dance into it. But it really does.
And it feels that way.
If you have someone play a dominant 7 chord to a 1 chord, you totally hear it.
So here's a 5-1. And here's a dominant 7, 5-1. Those two.
It almost can't.
Love that trito, baby.
Stay there. Yeah.
And a big part of it too is that dominant 7 is only a step away from where you have to go.
Yep.
That whole
One going up, one going down.
One step away
Yeah.
is pretty dissonant for most and that's what creates that thing in your ear of like, I can't stay here, I have to go somewhere.
Yep.
You know. Now, don't get me wrong, there are people who write things like I was exactly thinking the same thing.
Why? I do that, Jake.
But-
why? I feel like you're just triggering people.
It's a social experiment.
And that might be it. Like, I want to make people feel triggered, right? Like when they hear that, it's like, ooh, that doesn't sound good.
So do your active listening too.
I think
A really good stuff we can do is get a piece of paper. Once you just know the key, right? Listen and write down what you think it is. And then turn the song on, grab your ukulele, and play along. See how right you are.
because like also with doing that, I think people are afraid of like guessing, or they're like, what if I'm wrong? And that's part of it is like,
You're in practice, you should be wrong.
yeah, if you're wrong, that just means that it doesn't really matter if you're right or wrong. You're looking at like, oh, I don't know. Okay, yeah, I was close, or oh, I was off. Okay,
Yeah.
Well, you
again.
can get it into so if you're doing an active listening thing and you're doing a certain chord and you consistently make this chord wrong, whatever. Okay, why? Go back and listen to it. What were you hearing versus what it actually is? Because the main thing is using your ear and using what you learn out of, whatever theoretical knowledge you have, is learning to identify what it is. That's when we're talking about that, all that music theory stuff, and I've said this a billion times, all it is just so I have a name for everything. It really is. So just when I
explain stuff.
Yeah. So instead of him going, well, do this and play this scale and then and then he can just say, oh, well, it's a C major scale that's going to a G major
Yeah.
scale.
Yeah.
Because if you try and explain it like note by note, it's like, okay, we're playing the notes D, E, F sharp, G.
Yeah.
Is like takes
It's
a long
going to take
time.
you forever.
That's like breaking down a sentence like as an English major. You're like, okay, well, that noun, and then you're
Yeah.
connecting it with some conjunction.
Now, it depends on where you are in
Yeah.
your journey. Now, at the very, very beginning, when you're like kindergarten level, talking about nouns and verbs and stuff like is exactly what you have to do.
Yep.
But if you're a senior in high school, probably shouldn't be. You should have developed the
better
that
vocabulary.
flow.
Yeah.
We should develop that flow, that
Yeah.
instinctive flow. And yet that'll happen with music too. People again often forget music is a language. How long did it take you to learn to speak English on a fluent level?
Right.
It takes a while. I mean, if you talk to anybody who's like a young kid, it's years before they can have, any conversation outside of what Bluey was doing and what they had for lunch. That's okay, though. That's where they are.
Yeah.
If you go to like a 5-year-old and say, hey, what do you think about the current economic situation? And what are they going to They can't answer that.
They shouldn't.
If they can,
be
that's
able to.
amazing. But same as if you're beginning on ukulele, no, break it down to like these simple component parts, because once you learn that, you'll get what he does is just a very, very, very fluid version of that.
Yeah.
All that's he doesn't have to think about everything individually because he's heard it.
Each note, each chord,
Yeah.
you're thinking about more generalized things. And I think that's also the part that people don't realize when they're like, oh, how do you just like see somebody or hear somebody play something once and recreate it? It's like in your head, you're also like imagining that sound, right?
Yeah.
You have that sound in your head. And so it's like you're playing along to a record. You're just doing that. And I think that's a skill set that people don't think about building. And it's not necessarily like something that somebody might tell you like, practice this. But it's like while you're playing a song, are you imagining what the song sounds like? And are you playing along to that imagination of what the song sounds like? Because if you can do that, then yeah, it's like you can hear, that's like memory where you're just like watching somebody or listening to somebody and you store it in your like short-term memory a little bit. And you're like, okay, I'll just recreate that with what I think I can on my ukulele or on my instrument.
Hey, next.
Okay.
Yeah, lots of questions today.
Yeah. Nice.
Okay. So Scott said, can each of you show us a ukulele that you have worn out and retired from playing so much? How long did it take to do that, and why did you decide not to repair it? So we can't
Actually,
show.
I do have I do have the top because like I replaced the top
Yeah.
of my fluke, so I
Yeah.
have that somewhere. I can show that.
But that's like I was thinking that's like kind of the only ukulele, or like I didn't even think about Aaron's ukulele. But what about you guys? Like, when do you guys decide to retire an instrument then?
I mean, you're lucky if you can retire. It's I guess it's kind of like retiring in real life. Like, like everyone has to just keep working until they die, right? Like that's unless, unless you're well off or wealthy enough to be like, you know what, I can retire, not have to work, and and my bills will still get paid or something like somehow, right? And same thing where like, with an instrument, it can last forever. Like one ukulele can last you like your entire career. Like if anything.
I mean, how many times I can tell you in the store how many times I've seen someone who comes in with like an old Kamaka.
Yeah.
Oh, this is my grandfather's Kamaka, and they're not a young person either.
Yeah.
Like they're in like their 50s.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, this is my grandfather's Kamaka.
Yeah.
And it needs a little cleaning here and there, maybe a re-glue every once in a great while, but it's still there.
Yeah, so I mean, I know I've talked about like retiring my ukuleles, but that's just in jest, really. And you see like my ukuleles come back all the time. So it's not like I'm like retiring them or putting them out to pastures. It's like, okay, well, I'm gonna put that aside while I play this one, and then I'm gonna put this one away for a little bit, take a rest, just whatever I feel like, what I feel like playing. I'm lucky enough, fortunate enough to have multiple ukuleles that I can use. Whereas like one is active. It's basically like not necessarily retiring. It's just like I have this one that I'm actively using right now, and the others that are just like on standby.
They're on the bench.
Yeah, but they're not retired. Like you don't really retire an instrument because I feel like especially with instruments, like the more you play it, the longer and the older that it is, the better it sounds. So like why retire it if it's at that like golden age?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a certain point. I know there are lots of guys who it's harder to get to a retirement point with an instrument because the instrument can't handle it. That's different. I do know that there are
an injured list.
Yeah.
It's an injury.
Once an ukulele goes on the disabled list,
Yeah.
But it's more like there are definitely, I think, instruments that I have seen guys have where after 25 years, it becomes so valuable to them on a personal level that they don't want to take the chance. The two I can think of immediately. Marcus Miller, I don't think of bass players, obviously. Marcus Miller, his famous, 77 Jazz. He played that from the 80s all the way till about like 2010. And after that, it was such a part of him, though, that he started to get a little
sentimental.
He was sentimental about it and
Worried about traveling with it.
with it. And truth be told, with the amount he plays, there was definitely some physical wear starting to happen on that thing.
Yeah.
So he figured, okay, this now just becomes a studio instrument. I'm only going to play it in the studio in controlled environments. The other one was Bill Wyman of the Rolling Stones, his bass. Bill Wyman, trivia fact, was one of the first guys to ever play a fretless bass on record. He had an old crappy Japanese bass that the frets were loose and rattled. So he just grabbed a knife and popped them all out, filled it with plastic wood. And then he said, I always figured I'd replace them one day. But as soon as he played it without the frets, it sounded so good. He's like, I'm going to leave it like this. So all the original Rolling Stone stuff is done with that fretless bass.
Yeah.
Well, once they got to like the 80s, he was like, I don't know that I could replace this. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't like, it wasn't a Fender or a Gibson. It was some basically knockoff Japanese one that he doesn't even know if that company existed by that point. So that thing, again, went off the road. And he got other basses and stuff like that. But it was mostly because this bass is so valuable to me that I don't want to risk.
Yeah.
And in another 20 years, maybe you will think about that as one of these instruments. Although
I already do. So there's a bunch of ukuleles that I do, because I'm not like that light on these instruments. And like this one, for example, like I use this one a lot. The place where the pick guard is not at, it's definitely like shaved down. You can kind of see it from here. Can they see that? So here's the so there. It's like not scratches, but it's tough to see from there, but there.
Oh yeah.
Because you can see like from the light. So here's where the light hits it. There's the pick guard. There's where it stops, and that is not the color of this. So this is the finished color. That is gray and white. That's like, because so I'll strum and it'll hit and just like knock off that finish there.
Yeah.
But yeah, Aaron has something to share.
All right.
Oh yeah. Oh well, here you can just hold it. Yeah, I'll just talk about it. So I had this fluke ukulele, which is pretty much indestructible for like 20 years, and finally I think I knocked it off the desk and it hit the ground and it cracked the top.
Ooh.
So I called.
Right
there
there,
it is.
Yeah, I sent a message to the Magic Fluke company, and they replaced the top for me. So the original top was pine, and I think the new top is like like a solid spruce. But yeah, that was like basically 20 years of just beating it and not caring, not keeping it in a case, just leaving it around the house, knocking it over multiple times, and yeah, it held up the entire time until finally it suffered a blow that was like a little bit too much. But you can see like the wear, like all the places where it wore down.
is where
And you can
play.
kind of see that the new top is starting to have those same places worn down.
So you
because-
hold the ukulele here, obviously. when
Yeah.
you're holding it, and here's like where you strum.
yeah, yeah,
So like when you do that, so like that's kind of taken out. So.
yeah.
And you can
So
kinda see
you
it
can kind of see the
starting
new
right
one.
over there.
The new top, I think, is about a year or two old.
Mm.
So
There's like
That's just love, man.
yeah,
I like seeing like guitars or other instruments too, and like people were like, "Oh, this person really like cowboy chords because only the first
Yeah.
4 frets are worn down." Right?
yeah. You can kind of see it on this
Ed
one too.
Sheeran guitar.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was actually pretty bummed because it did sound really good. You know,
the pine.
yeah, when before it broke,
Yeah.
it did sound really really good. And I think this is the pine. It's like a pine. I think it's a laminate. So it wasn't even a solid top originally. It
just
is
sounded
it
good
is a
because of
solid top
wear and
now.
tear.
But yeah, but it still sounded much better than when I first got it.
Yeah, so that question is up to you to decide like when that is, and when it's time to put it away, or when it's time to use another instrument. But that's a personal thing. Like I don't think there's a guideline of like, okay, it's starting to sound like 2 decibels like quieter than usual.
It's
or,
it's the same question as like, when should I change my strings?
Yeah, it's that. But and like a way more expensive version of that,
more
like that
expensive.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think,
So-
and I think it's hard to beat that sentimentality when you've been playing an instrument for a long time. Because it's like, I like the story of John Mayer too. Is like when they're gonna replace his Fender guitar, he was like, "Oh, I don't know," and then they send him a Fender guitar with like the same exact makeup as the one he's playing, and when he played it, he's like, "It just doesn't sound the same." So he put it in the fridge to try and get it to sound the same. And then they're like, "Well, let's look at the guitar that you have and how you have it configured." And then they're like, "Oh, the pickups are not how we have it configured for this new guitar. So if we just change how we configure the pickups," he's like, "Yep, okay, it sounds like my old guitar." So yeah. But there is something to it, right? Where it's like, I love that guitar, so I want to keep it. Too.
Yeah. Next. Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
I was going to say real quick. There is one other thing. It depends on how you look at your instruments. There are people who look at instruments as tools.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
carpenters aren't sentimental about their hammers.
You do want like the sharpest tool.
Yeah.
Like all
well,
the time.
but what I mean by that is that some people look at their instrument as just a tool.
Yeah.
There's no sentimentality attached to it. If it works, it works. And if it doesn't work, that's when they'd move it on.
Yeah.
You know, and
or
then
if
some
it doesn't,
people-
you can't use it for what your sound is like now.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, that might be way easier for someone to just move on. If this doesn't do what I want it to do anymore, boom. Same like a carpenter. If a certain hammer doesn't do what they need it to do, they'll just go get another one. You know, a lot of us aren't like that, unfortunately.
I think-
Yeah,
well, I
most
think-
musicians are not.
I think even the people who I've heard who are like that, they still kind of have that sentimentality where they're like, but I want to keep this old instrument because it has so much memories tied to it.
Yeah.
Even though the instrument might not be what I think is special.
Yeah.
It's like I can remember playing here, so that's why I want
Yeah.
to keep it.
Okay. Next.
All right.
Okay, Chris and Sue said, still trying to land the artificial harmonics at the end of Time in a Bottle quickly and accurately. Any suggestions?
Practice. That's
Guy.
the answer to everything.
Yeah.
So you can't take it out on your own students today. To get it out of mine. It's fine. It's fine. I give you permission. I'm not the nicest either. Okay. Can you remind me, Kahai, what that is?
I'll look it up.
At the very end.
Oh,
of
that
time. Dum, dum.
I think that's
yeah,
right.
yeah,
right?
something like that. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of it has to do with with accuracy. You know, just isolated. Are you able to play that line just by itself? If you were just to do, and just play that over and over again to see if you can just get that part down. Because once that starts to feel like just second nature, like something that you do, then you can attach it a lot easier. My second piece of advice is because I think the D minor here and then going to that, you can let go of the D minor. You don't have to hold the D minor while you're playing that the harmonic line, because you're gonna play the harmonic line anyway. Focus on the notes in that line. So even if you have to like kind of switch your positions, if those are the notes in the song, and notice like I'm playing it like this because it's the easiest way for me to hold it. So you can go from D minor, okay. So that's the second step, is to see if you can play it like just play the notes without the harmonic. So first play just the harmonic part, and then play the line without the harmonics, and just try to play the notes by itself to be. And then add the two things together. So practice it part by part and then put it together. Much like with anything. It's still hard. It's not gonna be like, that's all you gotta do.
Yeah.
You can do it. No, it's still pretty difficult. All right, next.
Yeah. I mean, because Yvette kind of had like a similar question, but I don't know. We don't really know this song or this particular song. So she said, I'm struggling with plucking string A, string 3rd fret, and E string 0 at the same time, then going to the 7th fret on the A string. How do I practice making a smooth transition? And then she said the song is You Are My Sunshine.
Wait, go back to that first part again so that I can see. Okay, plucking the string A string. Oh, at the same time?
I think.
And then going to the. So knowing that like you're gonna play A string 3rd fret and 0 fret at the same time, like it's just playing a C and then moving that ring finger up to 7. I'm trying to figure it out. But it really is it's just that. It's just playing the C then going up to the to the 7th fret. You can play the 3rd fret and the E string 0 fret without having to to change that. All you have to play is the 3rd fret, because the 0 fret is just open, right? You can if you're playing it just like down hits like this is going to be a little bit difficult. You're trying to play it. It's probably meant to be played as a finger pick. So if you're playing as a finger pick, you're using 2 fingers, and then going up to this to the A string 7th fret. It shouldn't be that bad.
Yeah.
You're just going from here, sliding that finger to 7. So you just go from 3. It's probably that.
Yeah. Use your fret markers too, and put your eye onto the 7th fret so that you land there. Like I feel like it might be just that, right? You're going from lower on your fretboard to higher on your fretboard, but sometimes you overshoot it or undershoot it.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's like, just make sure you know exactly where you're going, and then make sure your finger gets there in time.
Looking at that, I would also have to ask what came before that.
Yeah.
Because looking at that, I would even say something even easier. If she's gonna play 3rd fret A string and then open, do that with your 1st finger, and then you can just go pinky, and then you don't have to slide at all. But I guess that would depend on what comes before that.
Yeah, if you need other fingers for that.
Yeah, what are you doing right before
yeah.
that? Because if you're all over here, then using your 3rd finger makes sense. But then if you're not, then
That's why it's
that's stuff that goes up on his head.
It's kind of hard to give specific advice if we don't know what the song is or what it looks like or how you're playing it too. But going back to the earlier advice you gave, isolate just that part, right? And then try and isolate that part, just play that, and then see you try to self-diagnose why is it hard for me to jump from here to here? What is my fingers getting caught on? And it could be like Aaron said, where it's you're over jumping or you're not. When you think you reach it, you might be a fret short, and then you skip back up to the 7th.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So just
getting comfortable with that.
Yep.
So sometimes it's just a matter of like a lot of people when they slide their hand along the bottom of their neck,
Yeah.
is like there's too much friction there, so you gotta play with the amount of friction and
Yeah.
like how lightly you touch
And you probably
while you move. So
it's like you don't think about that if you're like just trying out a song for the first time. You just probably like kind of go at
Yeah.
it like straightforward.
I do
Yeah.
want to see it. I mean, if you
You
know,
have to.
like, just show up to one of the Mondays and stuff. We've seen you before, so show up to that and like show us exactly what you're doing. We can diagnose it for you, but we don't know we don't know the context, you know. So yeah, next.
I think, or going back to Chris and Sue's stuff and this one too, though, it's like I think a lot of people, like with Chris and Sue, that artificial harmonics is at the end of the song, so they might think like, okay, I gotta play the whole song before I just practice that artificial harmonics.
No, you
If
can just
there's-
isolate that.
Yeah, if there's any part of a song, it's like, or I think people get into the habit of like, oh, I can play all of this really good and I like this. I'm not that good at this part, but you know, I'm not gonna just focus on that. And
Yeah.
if it really is causing you problems, like that's probably what you
That's
should
the opposite.
spend.
Focus on exactly what you're not good at.
Yeah.
All right, next. I want to get through a bunch of these questions. That's why I'm just like, answered. Now, next one.
Okay. So Jim said, with classical music, there's a set of songs which are referred to as studies and are expressly written to explore and reinforce playing in a specific key. And he gave some examples. But then he asked, does Aldrine or Mike know of any for ukulele? Yep.
Any what? Wait,
Like
what?
etudes. He's asking about things like etudes where
Oh.
like you're
Songs written specifically so you
Right.
can practice or learn a key or learn certain stuff.
I'm pretty sure there's a whole book called like Etudes for ukulele
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, but you can always just like
Practice songs in a specific key.
Or if you're like, I've really been having a hard time like switching from this chord to that chord, you can just make something from,
Yeah.
with that. Like the etude, like the fancy word is you can use what we do here at Ukulele Underground called 8-4-2-1. If you're having a hard time going from one chord to another, play one chord for 8. Go to the other chord for 8. Play another chord, the first chord for 4, play the second chord for 4. Play the first chord again for 2, play the second chord for 2. Play the first chord for 1, play the second chord for 1. You're like, but I don't have a hard time doing that strumming. You can do that, without finger picking as well. 8 beats, 8 beats, 4 beats, 4 beats. So
Can you
for
show that?
example, F and C, all right? So 8-4-2-1 would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2. So that's what an 8-4-2-1 is. You can do that finger picking. What? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1. And it doesn't have to be like, I need to look for these specific exercises. No, you can just switch between the two and just like finger pick between them. Like it doesn't have to be like specific exercises for that. I think you're just trying to overcomplicate it for people who need it, which are beginners. If somebody's having a hard time doing that, they're probably beginners, and you would scare them off by saying you should practice etudes and look for it in this book or with that song. And like, no, just practice 8-4-2-1.
Yeah, on the
Sing
chords that you're having trouble
chords that you're having a
switching
hard time
between.
switching. Exactly.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that fancy. I feel like that's kind of a. It's too much steps. Seems elitist.
I think
So wait. When it comes to etudes,
Yeah.
one thing to realize too is that if you have issues nowadays in today's world, you have the ability to seek out advice like that.
Yeah.
In the heyday of when studies at etudes were really being written for things,
You didn't have
you didn't have access
yeah.
to guys. So like a guy like Furling, who wrote an entire book of like really important saxophone studies, most guys couldn't go study with him. You know what I mean? But if you bought his book, it's like you could study with him.
Yeah, here
Now-
are the things
here are
that
the
I would
exercises that
probably
he does.
recommend.
Yeah.
If
Now,
I was there.
in today's world, if they want you, they can just seek you out on Ukulele Underground.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They can come to Kauai and sign up at the AG Ukulele Company. But that is a 21st century luxury that I think people have that I should also say take advantage of.
Yeah.
I mean, if I had access to guys on the internet like today's kids have, if you had access to ukulele players and explanations, because I can tell you everybody in like this generation, my generation, there's a lot of sitting around with a CD going play, rewind, play, play. What is he doing? I don't know. And maybe if you're lucky, Kyle Creator Boys will be on Hot Hawaiian Nights. And then you do the same thing with the VHS tape. Back, forth, back, forth, back, forth.
Double check your work. I mean, like, I knew it. You knew that was GB minor C for
if he's doing like a weird, like one of those like the pull off. I don't know. You would know the name. Yeah, that stuff. I mean, if you hear that on a record, how do you?
Yeah, is that two ukuleles or?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, again, I would say Marcus Miller. The very first time he ever heard the song "Portrait of Tracy" by Jacob Storius, he said, "I bought the album, and it didn't leave my record player for a year and a half."
Just trying to learn
because he just kept going over and over and over and over. And he said he said he wore out numerous records because it was like play, get that 5 seconds. Okay, go back.
Needle is unforgiving, buddy.
Yeah, go back. You guys nowadays you're so blessed with much more expansive
15-second rewind back, exactly.
And then slow down on YouTube.
Yeah. And I think like, we were talking about like Genevieve was like, how do you do that where it's like you can see somebody play something and you recreate it? It's like if you had the experience we had trying to learn from videos that we did, where it's like,
iron sharpens iron,
way
baby.
More sense.
Iron sharpens iron.
It's like, please just show me like a second, 2 seconds of whatever finger position you're holding.
Where are you even holding that?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Like when we were learning from those videos too, or at least my experience is like, I just put my fingers down where I think they're putting their fingers down, and I try it, and it's like,
if it doesn't sound right, then it's probably not that.
Or if it feels weird, like why does my fingers feel weird when theirs doesn't? And I just keep trying, and then like sometimes it's like a breakthrough, right? Where it's like, oh my gosh, they uploaded another live version of their song.
Yeah, that's
can see
less
their finger from their other angle. Oh, I finally got it. I know there's like several, or like some. It's like, okay, I'm watching a 240p video. I'm guessing where their fingers are, and then it's like, oh my gosh, they uploaded a 360 or a 720p video. I can finally see actually where they're putting their fingers. So it's like,
or if you don't have it, you just guess and you just try.
And sometimes it's like you get close, right? You get close, and then it's like
that's when like your knowledge of music theory kind of kicks in. You're like, it can only be these notes.
Yeah.
But technique is hard. Like,
or a lot of times it's like I got it close enough. And then you meet them, or like you find somebody who knows how to do it better, and then
that's what you were doing.
That happened recently, like with I mean, I do that a lot, but it happened recently. If we're trying to play like Honey Baby, for example, like. The way that I play it will sound like the album, but it's not like how the guy plays it.
The actual
guy. There's like ways and notes that he adds in there and technique that he does, and I'm just like not that I don't have to do because it's not like 100% correct, but it's good enough. It's like that that's the solo for Honey Baby, for example, or like No Pai Pai. Definitely not playing that one like how Troy does it, but I do it enough that like it's passable.
Because people get the idea.
Because even Honey Baby, right? Kaniho knows the actual recording of Honey Baby,
bass line. But
when you're playing, he's like, yeah, that sounds like the picking, right? That is the picking. And you're like, no, it's actually supposed to be this, and I'm not doing that.
It's he hears me play so much that he thinks that what I do is the actual picking. So like, there's no harmonics in that song at all. But I love like adding harmonics out of nowhere. And then he's just like, oh yeah, there's a harmonic there. I was like, actually, that's my thing.
When like, you listen to the recording of it,
there is no harmonics there because there's the. I'll add those like little things in there that is not in the record.
You've overridden the record in his head.
I guess. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it's Inception. That's how it goes, right? All right, next.
Okay. So Snyder Davis said, has anyone had the experience of taking in-person lessons for ukulele from a teacher who only uses guitar during the lesson? I should mention that I was an intermediate self-taught student when I began.
That's like a red flag.
That's a red flag. That's a red flag. That's a red flag. It's like, okay, cool, I'm gonna use my guitar to teach you ukulele. Like, no.
Yeah.
It's like, we're playing Call of Duty, Kai. Like, okay, well, Fortnite's like the same thing, right? So I'm gonna play Fortnite instead. I'm
teaching you how to
play Call of Duty using Fortnite. It's the same. It's the same. No, it's not. It's not the same though. That's a big red flag.
It just means that you're an
it.
expert in one, and then you're trying to figure out a way to
cross it. I mean, granted, there are things that overlap, but like, if you're a teacher, you're supposed to set like a good example to your students. And if you're playing guitar, like they cannot like learn through you, because like your student is watching how you hold it, watching how you play it, and it's just not gonna be the same. Like guitar and ukulele is just not.
You
the
have
same
two
thing.
extra strings.
Yeah,
your fingers are completely different.
And I feel like it's irresponsible as a teacher.
And you're telling the wrong chords.
Yeah. Yes.
Or
yeah,
I mean,
so
even
much
if they
wrong with
capo on a fifth and then they're telling you the correct chords.
Yeah, and don't let them tell you that it's okay or it's normal, because it's not normal or
that
okay.
If someone busts out a guitar for a beginner, capos it at the fifth fret and says, okay, well, if I put it here, remember that this is the nut and everything, you're just going to confuse them.
Yeah.
You're going to confuse them terribly.
Yeah, and I would argue that because even Davis said like that they were intermediate, like self-taught student, but even for intermediate people, like looking at a guitar and then trying to translate that in your head to like a ukulele, it's like taking more effort.
I would ask for my money back. Like right? Like why? That's irresponsible. Don't. But that upsets me so much.
Yeah, it's unfortunate though, because like that is not uncommon. Like that story we hear, where it's kind of similar to where people go into music shops and then they're told like, oh, buy a baritone. Like baritone is a better ukulele, but it's like because they're going into guitar shops where people know how to play guitars, they know how to sell the baritone easier than selling like standard ukuleles.
Yeah, those people that work at stores, man, I'm telling you, slime balls, all of them.
Some of us know how to do that.
God, when I walk into a store and I see a guy wearing glasses and a hat, I just know it's like,
you just think they're all like, oh, I'm gonna wear this kind of hat because I need to let everyone know how much of a musician I am.
But yeah,
anyway,
I mean, like,
we'll be back after these messages.
Because like even like when we're teaching ukulele, it starts from the form.
Yeah.
Right, and you can't
teach
proper form
if you're playing guitar.
With a different
instrument.
I think not.
The only time I would think like you're going to a music teacher and they're playing guitar and you're playing ukulele is for them to try and help you with like playing with another instrument, or like, getting used to like, okay, this is, if I'm playing this chord, you should play this, even if it looks different or it sounds different. Like,
I mean, if they're just strumming rhythm, so you can strum rhythm, and then maybe you're trading off solos and stuff, that's a different thing altogether. But basic technique.
No, if you're taking lessons, that's a lesson.
Yeah.
No, but what I'm saying,
that's a jam. So between a jam, if you're jamming the guitar, no problem. But if you're taking a lesson, like it's not.
And I feel like
same,
if you're taking it for a ukulele lesson, that might be like something that is just like at the end, or like something for fun. But not
any
the
which way,
core
it's
of
a huge red flag.
Yeah.
Oh, I would also ask, where is this person?
Yeah, so we can. Who is this? Docs.
No,
no.
But because obviously there is some truth that depending on where you live in the United States, or if you live in the United States or not, it is possible that maybe there is not any sort of a trained, knowledgeable ukulele player anywhere near you. And that's why guitarists jump on that bandwagon real quick, because it's a money-making thing. They see it. But I would also say that if you're taking lessons that you are paying for, you would have a better shot at really understanding the ukulele if you could find a real ukulele player. But if there's not one in your community, there are plenty of guys. Ukulele Underground,
online.
Ukulele
Seriously.
Underground Plus.
And not just us. There's
Yeah,
like
and that's
There's a lot, but of course we're here, so I'm going to say that one first.
Ukulele Underground. There's
Or-
Cynthia Lynn. There's Bernadette. There's like Ukulele. There's Spicy You.
Yeah.
There's so much that you can go to.
It's not the worst to go to like your local music shop or guitar shop and try and find the ukulele teacher there. But I think you might, if you really want in-person lessons, the better choice might be to look for a ukulele group specifically.
Yeah.
And see who goes there and if they take from anybody and they know any teachers in the area.
Or
they'll
just
have better-
jam. I think, like just jamming with people and watching what they do and copying what they do. Like, this is your best way of learning how to play the ukulele, and it's free.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be even the same if like you're trying to learn acoustic guitar from an electric guitarist. It's like
There are differences.
different
Yeah,
enough
yeah.
that
But I would still
you
be like,
wouldn't
that's
even-
maybe okay. Like that. I
Is
mean, if I
more
had
okay
to,
than-
if I had to, I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
But don't
Or-
bring that next week. Like, don't
Yeah.
bring that guitar next.
You know-
bring a proper acoustic or electric guitar, whatever you're learning.
Whatever
I think
you're
it
learning.
would, you know what it would be kind of like too, or like even more, is like you're taking classical lessons and the person brings like an electric guitar. And like, let me teach you, is like, this is not Crossroads. Like, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Thank you, Randy Rhodes, but no.
Yeah.
shouldn't you be playing a classical guitar too? But I think like from like people might be like, why do people say that they're ukulele teachers or they're different teachers for different instruments then? It's because like we actually talked to some people who from the mainland and they're like, well, you just get more clientele, right? When you
Yeah.
list like the more
All the
instruments that you
things,
can
yeah.
It's all about money,
teach.
baby.
Yeah.
That's where the money's at. More people playing ukulele means more students that want to do. So, like, if I'm a guitar player, like, I play strings, I could teach that
I can
thing.
figure that
Yeah,
out.
shapes are pretty similar.
Yeah, and like it really like it really cheapens the instrument and the and the people that do it properly. Like honestly, and it's a big red flag for me. And yeah. Imagine if there's like something you worked at like your entire life that someone just like I could probably do that, right?
I can
Like,
do that, so that means I can do what you do too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's probably thinking that if he brings his guitar enough, then you'll be more interested in learning
playing
guitar,
yeah,
and then he could
there's
just teach you
so much-
guitar. Like that's probably
so much red
yeah.
flag. And I know people got to put food on their table and stuff, but like,
Yeah.
just learn how to play the ukulele and then teach it.
Yeah.
Like
That's yeah.
And for students, just remember that. That's a big thing. If you have the option, and of course not every place does. If you live in a small town, maybe the only music teacher in your town is a guitar guy. Okay, cool. If you want to learn guitar, but if you want to learn an instrument that's not offered in your town, then look outside of your town.
or like you wanna learn how to play basketball with somebody. They bring a football. It's like it's not the same. It's not the same. Or a soccer ball. Like you can still round. You could toss the soccer ball and
Yeah.
put it in the net and stuff.
But it feels different.
yeah, it's like
moves
it's not
different.
the same, yo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, next.
After we've roasted this guy's teacher.
Yeah, Jesus. Deservedly so. Like, don't do that.
Yeah,
like,
don't do that.
don't do that. Like, that's because I mean, we've already come a long way at people at least like giving a little bit more respect to the ukulele now than
Yeah.
like in the times of like Tiny Tim and whatever. So we've come a long way, and there are definitely like jealous guitar players that like that. It seems like aim to still look at it as a toy,
Uh-huh.
and I think that's a backwards. That's why we got to roast it, because it's a backwards thing, like that's so backwards. Next,
Or it's that idea to kind of what Aaron said is like eventually you'll graduate outside of ukulele to guitar.
yeah,
or something.
exactly. It's
Yeah,
not a
like,
stepping stone. Like this is a serious instrument, everybody. So.
If people, it's totally fine if people learn the ukulele
Yeah.
and then they learn guitar afterwards.
Yeah.
Because they want to learn guitar.
All
but
good.
Like if somebody wants to learn ukulele, like give them what they want, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Next.
Okay. Well, I think I gotta look
That's all
for
the questions.
Okay. Me and Aaron kind of help some of these people, but let's try and see. Earlier when you were mentioning with chords and scales and like the numbers, so Official Anarchy said, what do the numbers mean? What are
They correspond to the numbers in the scales. So if you have like a C scale, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, you can think of do as 1, re is 2, mi is 3, do, re, mi, fa, sol, so on and so forth, right? So, and those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C will correspond to chords in a scale. So the chord family that I mentioned, in the chord family, your number 1, number 4, number 5 are going to be major chords. Number 2, 3, and 6 are going to be minor chords, okay? So in this case, C, C, D, E, F, C, D, E, F, G are all major, C, F, and G. So when you play ukulele, you're playing the key of C, those are always going to be the major chords that you're going to play in that key, all right? And then D minor, E minor, A minor are 2, 3, and 6. So your chords, if I'm saying, oh, like it's a 2, 5, 1 or whatever, then you would be like D minor, G, and C. That's the chord progression in that. So the numbers correspond to that. If you're looking to learn more about this, check out Chord Family over at Ukulele Underground.
Yep.
All in the chord family.
All in the family.
Okay.
Next.
Well, I actually wanted to take that question and then like challenge Mike.
Oh.
Answer in 5.
Okay. all right.
Okay.
What do the numbers mean?
What do the numbers mean?
What are they?
Answer in 5.
The degrees of the scale.
The degrees of the scale.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So yeah, basically just if you know what key you're in, you number the notes in that key,
Yeah.
and those are what the numbers
And then build
are.
the chord from each
Yeah.
of those
Yeah.
scale degrees, and there you go.
Yep.
Okay.
Next.
Yvette said, "Is there a book that has all the scales?"
Yes.
Yes. There's tons. I
But
mean,
the
just-
internet has it
yeah,
too.
the internet. Yeah.
You can Google that.
But if somebody says that they want to learn
Yeah.
all the scales, like where should they start and what is that?
Okay, first off, before we answer this question, it's all about context. Okay, it's all about context because and I found this out pretty late in life when I was in band, and my band teacher told me like, oh, you just gotta learn all your scales. I'm like, all right. So like I would practice my scales, but without content, you're like, what is this for?
am I doing
Yeah, what
this?
am I doing this for? So you can find a book, learn every single scale in the world, but not know how to apply it. It's all in context, all in application and applying what you've learned. Okay. Now, with that said, you can figure out any scale, major and minor scale that you want using, and start there. I'm guessing, because Yvette, as a beginner, just start with those. Don't get like a fat book with like Arabic scales and natural minors, and harmonic minors and stuff like that. Like, you don't need that stuff, and probably won't. Like,
Start
with major, minor.
I would even argue start with major. Major.
Just major, and find the formula to make a major scale, which is whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. It's as easy as that. Whole steps, half steps. Each and your ukulele is designed to kind of visualize these a lot, pretty easy. A whole step is 2 frets away, so from A to B is a whole step. B to C, or let's just say the frets. Let's say not even the notes, so to not confuse you. 0 to 2 is a whole step, but 2 to 3 is a half step. So if we were to figure out a scale, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half would be a scale. And that's your major scale. And whatever note you start with, that's your whatever major scale that is. So in this case, A, open A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A will be your A major scale.
Yep. And then
Okay.
yeah, just try and learn more
Yeah.
and like apply that to actual songs.
But as far as like a book, if you really need a book, you can just go on Amazon and and type in like scales book, and I'm pretty sure like 100 of them, and they're all probably gonna be right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only difference would be you could definitely find scale books. Like I've one that I think of a lot is Nicholas Slemensky's Thesaurus of Scales and Melodic Patterns. That is definitely nothing you need. That book is like the encyclopedia of everything to do with every skill known to man. But the hard part for someone who's just getting started is that book has zero context.
Yeah, it's
so they
just
give
the
you a
scales,
scale
yeah.
and they give you a bunch of exercises to play within that scale.
Yeah, and that's
cool. But unless you already kind of have a decent command over your instrument, then you're not going to understand what's happening there.
So it's all about context.
There should be some people out there. I feel I can't off the top of my head, but there's got to be somebody who's written a book like that for ukulele specifically.
I'm sure.
Maybe even with the
Some
dreaded
diagrams
tabs
and stuff. Yeah.
Let's do it. If there is it, we'll do it.
Yeah.
Right, Mike?
Exactly.
Yeah, we'll do it. Make, and
Just
then-
for you guys.
And then tell guitar players you can use this too. Me, I used speaking of guitar, I used a guitar grimoires, like grimoires. Grimoire. Of guitar scales.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Carl in the chat said that UU plus Solo Secrets Revealed lessons helped me begin to learn and apply scales, and that's it's pretty
Yeah, we showed you a regular Ionian scale and a Mixolydian scale, and you can use those two and just solo out
but you
of
don't
those
need to
you
know
want.
those
You don't need to know
terms.
what they're called, but it's just like
because people are saying like, some people when their teachers started them on modes or whatever, they're like,
don't do that. Don't do that. Just learn just a major scale for now and see how that fits into what you're playing, like the major scale, and maybe like the circle of fifths if you want to apply chord family, because chord families are basically all in the circle of fifths.
On this channel we have YouTube videos on how to use a blank fretboard diagram to pretty much map out any scale that you want, and then also how to use the circle of fifths to figure out chord families and other things.
Anything else, Guy?
No, I think and I was gonna say I think the thing that people think they gotta learn though is I learned the C scale, C major scale. I gotta learn the C sharp scale. I gotta learn the D scale. I gotta learn the D sharp scale. I gotta learn the E scale. It's kind of, if you learn the shape of a C major scale, and then you can kind of figure out how to transition that to other scales, is you realize it doesn't really help that much to be able to at that point you're just playing up and down your fretboard, right? You're not applying it. So.
I remember taking a test for Macintosh's class, and it's you need to learn all your scales, and then even there, I knew them as a clarinet and a sax player. I'm but what do I do with them? And then eventually when I start to make the connect the dots. So this is way later, where if I'm doing this long fast clarinet line or whatever, no, hey, it's a scale, but for the most part it's chromatic. It's so I didn't really need to learn that. Or even if I didn't play the scale correctly, as long as my first and last note were relatively fine, it was okay.
Close enough.
Yeah, got trophies for it. Just like I got trophies for this show. Not trying that hard.
I mean, that's the whole thing with scales. It's I know it's such an important part for most teachers, and myself included, but it's how you approach it. You got to look at scales and chords as the building blocks of everything else you're going to play. If you look at them as something super important unto itself, you're kind of missing the point.
Yeah, it's one Lego brick. Oh.
Yeah, you should have it. But don't stop there.
Yeah,
you don't stop there.
How do you use this?
Yeah,
how do you build
how
stuff with
I
this?
think of scales is there's a billion scales in the world to use. The only reason I took time to start learning as many of them as I could was so that, again, when you're listening, things don't sound unfamiliar to me.
Yeah.
If I hear someone play something like an Egyptian minor scale, that's a weird sounding scale. But because I've heard it enough times, if someone uses it, I kind of understand, that's what they're doing, and this is the type of thing I should play behind it to help support that.
Here's a question for you, Mike. I didn't go to music school, so
Okay.
Is
Yes,
there
it's
a
expensive.
scale? Is there a scale that starts with like a because you know like one it definitely starts at one,
Yes.
right? Where the one is either sharp or flat, like intentionally, not like a C sharp scale, like that's still like one by itself, but like
A scale that would start with a sharp 1?
or a sharp or flat one.
You
Do
mean like
you
I need-
understand what I mean? Like,
So you're thinking like a C scale, but all of a sudden
Yeah.
it started with a sharp 1.
yeah, C sharp. It's a C scale, but it starts with C sharp. Is there a scale like that?
Wouldn't it not be categorized as that then?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm throwing like just
It
whatever.
should be, yeah. Whatever note you start with is what. Now, the fact that if you had C sharp to C sharp with no sharps and flats in between, that in itself would be a very interesting scale.
Yeah.
You'd have to throw a bunch of the little squiggles
Yeah.
behind it to make that make sense.
So in every scale, one is always whatever
The
the scale
root?
is.
Yes.
Is it-
Yeah, that's basically what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
Like whatever the root is,
there's not a
and
scale
it
I
has
can.
to stay in
Yeah,
the same.
there's not a scale I can think of
Yeah.
that has an altered 1.
Yes, that's what.
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
maybe
yeah.
that's what I was asking. Is
Yeah.
there an altered one scale?
Not that I can think of.
Because it would be weird, right? Like taking it back, like music theory supports music.
Yeah.
It'd be weird if you wrote a song and you're like, okay, guys, this is a song, but we're never like the one is always sharp. Every time you play the one, you gotta play it sharp.
I wanted to throw up like, I didn't go to fancy schmancy music school, but
Now there are versions of that.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, we're playing in one of my bands right now.
Yeah.
We're playing this Hawaiian music suite,
Mm-hmm.
and they write in a more modern style. So the first thing they got rid of was key signatures,
Mm-hmm.
and by getting rid of the key signatures, so,
liberating.
so technically it all looks like it's in C,
Mm.
but the idea is that sharps or flats, anything like that,
It'll
is
show up on-
purposely placed
Yeah.
in the music where it needs
show
to
up in the
be.
measures.
So there's no key signature there. It's just play the music as it's written. What it frees them to do is if you just write everything no sharps, no flats, unless you want it sharp or flat, then what it means is you don't have to like, you'll never get into the position having to use like double sharps or anything like that because there's no key signature there to interfere with the accidentals you're throwing in.
well, you won't if you write in C.
If you write all in C, it helps.
You won't have double sharps at all, Mike.
You write everything in C, but then you put the tuning to like the whatever is the actual key, right?
Slack key, basically. Yeah.
It's like
Wait,
everything
tuning is in tuning scheme or the tuning of the notes? Because that's
is like it's like giant steps, and then it's like every few steps, a few measures, you see like a equals 432 or something.
gosh.
A equals 450 something.
so funny enough. There is pieces that are like that.
Yeah.
And I'm
That's-
trying to think of it, the name of the guy right now. He was talked about an Adam Neely thing. I went to go listen to his music, and it's interesting.
Yeah.
So do you have to use different instruments completely during those parts?
So for this particular one, the guy wrote for string quartet. So violins, violas, stuff, because then you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah,
Because you can
yeah,
just
yeah.
move your finger.
I
No,
see.
I see.
Because if you want to change the tuning scheme, you can. So different parts, when the strings are playing together, they say, okay, now tune it to this. So they have to hear the tuning of their thing change.
Yeah.
But because you can just rotate your finger like this a little bit
Yeah,
to do that, then I'm just like, nope,
Yeah.
no. I like giant steps, but that's beyond me, man.
I was just trying to think, like, okay, if like say a C major scale,
Okay.
is there a scale that goes?
Oh no, you
No,
gotta
but then
end-
your
you
one
gotta-
would be different too. Once you get to your
Oh no, the one is the 8 is, or the one at the end is that is
So starts on C sharp but ends on C.
yeah.
Even
I
that
don't know.
is weird.
I'm just trying to throw
Right.
something at you. You're trying to make conversation,
but
buddy.
then yeah,
So-
that would just be an accidental.
So the only way I
them.
could see that happening
yeah.
is if someone. So technically, it wouldn't be that the scale begins on it. You could probably find a mode in G because the key signature is, or no, C, because that's
It'd be
because
D.
you need
Because
C.
C sharp. So D.
So you would need to find a mode in D, flat the F, or flat natural the F.
Well, this is exactly it, right? You're doing this to troll somebody. You're doing this to make somebody like,
That's what I'm doing. I know exactly how to troll musicians, baby.
there's no logical reason to do this, but just so when somebody looks at the sheet music, they're like, what am I looking at?
It's like, wouldn't it end in a C? It's like, nope. No, wouldn't it end in a C sharp? Nope. No, it ends in a C natural, but starts in a C sharp.
No,
And then C sharp, D, E, F, G, A, B, C.
talking about this,
scale
I
is that?
feel like I'm getting a tension headache. I feel like I'm like getting stressed.
What scale is that, Mike? Mr. Music School guy.
Yeah,
Sharp
that,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
it
7,
would not
8.
be such a. It would be flat. Because if you're in C sharp, then you're flatting it down. But
No,
then as soon as you get
I am creating the scale. Don't tell me how to create my scale. It's the Aldrine scale.
okay, but then you'd have to start. You have to use the regular rules, one note per name. So if you're gonna do that and actually come up to all naturals,
Oh my god.
you would have to be basically you're picking like a B scale and sharpening everything except the C sharp.
No, but you still have a B
and
at
it's
the top.
Dorian mode.
So
Yes.
it just like breaks every single rule, right? Like you're just saying like it doesn't everything we talked about, like you follow the form, it throws it all out.
Yes.
But watch, there's gonna be like some weird composition major. We're like, hey, you idiots! It's called this.
Yeah, of
It's
course,
like-
of course.
Bring it on.
Yeah, you idiots! It's called whatever scale.
Here's the thing. As most great musicians said, you learn all the rules so you can break all of them.
Yeah.
But just because you can break the rules, and just because you can come up with a logical reason to do it, doesn't mean that it's still any kind of music people want to listen to.
If anyone was wondering, yeah, I'm trolling. I'm trolling Mike. It's not like a serious question. There is no such thing, and I'm just trolling. And because we were done at 1:00, and I wanted to like keep the conversation.
But I'm going to play along with it.
So just no. I know you know that I'm trolling.
There's music nerds out here who want to hear this.
I know you know that I'm trolling, but for the people who are like, wait, what? Like, no, just don't follow the.
Once we pass 1:00, it's all bets are off, guys. This
just-
is the after show on Raw. Anything can happen.
I just imagine music nerds are frothing at the mouth. Where it's like some are like, there is a scale called
There's a
this,
scale
and then
that starts with a
others-
sharp one.
It's like, you idiots! Why would you even do this? This is horrible. Don't even bring this up.
This is why we're award winning, because we ask
We
the
tackle
compelling
the tough
questions. Yeah,
questions.
we tackle the tough questions. Okay, no one else is willing to tackle. You think James Hill is tackling this sharp one question, guys?
No, but if he
my
has a
gosh.
podcast, we should write in.
Yeah. I was
There's like
gonna
a
say.
German podcast that we're up against. You think they're tackling sharp ones?
Nope.
That's why 2 times, baby, 2 times. Give me that award.
Soon to be 3.
All year. I'm gonna lip about it all year. And then when the audience votes us for a 3rd time. Man.
You know what we have to do? When this podcast stops, we have to make a new podcast called the Sharp One Podcast.
Yeah.
Well, wait, don't you remember? Every one of these podcasts used to have names.
No, they still do.
They still do.
Yeah, they
right?
still have titles.
That's
Yeah,
what
they still
that's
have
what you should
titles.
tell this one.
Sharp one.
Sharp one with a guest star.
Okay. Yeah.
That's it. But yeah, to the people who are wondering, yeah, I'm joking. I'm trolling. So don't be like,
You
hey,
lucky we're not talking
brought
about Locomocos.
Aldrine brought up this one scale on the latest Ukulele on podcast. What scale is that?
You're all gonna go ask your
joke.
teachers.
It's a
wherever
joke. Okay, I'm trolling.
What is it?
That's gonna be the most funny if we get like all
we
emails
have to
from like
answer.
ukulele
Yeah.
teachers. Ukulele teachers everywhere just writing into like, what scale are you talking about? My students are asking about it. I don't know what they're
The
talking
next
about.
James Hill podcast is like sharp one. Like, wait, what? James actually tackled that.
Yeah.
This is
It's a
like,
2-second podcast. Him going, there is no such thing, and then the episode's over.
that's the kind of question though that you ask like robots to see if they like start short-circuiting and break, like they explode. It's like,
Yeah. It's 1:30. It was just this is fun hour now.
I
okay?
do have to point out one actual music theory thing. That's interesting. in a single measure, and I actually didn't realize this for a while. Sarah helped me clarify this one. If you have an accidental in one octave
Okay.
of a one measure, right?
Okay.
So accidentals means when we put a sharp or flat.
Yeah.
Okay. It's supposed to last to the end of the measure, right? If you put it in the low octave, it actually doesn't carry over to the high octave.
Huh.
I didn't realize that for
Interesting.
years.
So you could have a sharp one at the bottom.
You could.
And then when you reach that C at the top.
It would naturally be a
boom.
natural.
We're onto
but there's,
something, I'm
but there's,
telling you.
But there's no name for that.
Dude,
necessarily.
this is some. Oh, can somebody get Juilliard on the phone?
We need to publish a paper on this.
Yeah, I need to publish a paper on this. Guys, I'm gonna have to write a song.
the
that
mechanics of the sharp.
way. Sharp one.
We got.
Oh my god.
We also have to point out because like people are gonna hear that you said
Yeah.
Sarah and think that it's Sarah Mizell.
It's not Sarah.
Oh, no,
Mizell,
no.
it's Sarah
Sarah
Tucci.
Tucci.
Yeah,
Tucci.
from
Hi,
the
Sarah.
KCC. Like she's the KCC music
Yes.
director. So yeah.
It was some one of those things. Someone put it on Facebook and said, "Well, what's the answer to this?" And it kept going. The answers kept going back, and I thought for years because so it was like a low F sharp, and then there was an
Yeah,
F, and they ask, "Is the F
Natural.
sharp too?"
Ah. So
Because
Sarah's
I
like,
thought it was.
you idiot.
No. So I just sent it to her and said, "Sarah, half the people are saying that
Yeah.
that next one should be natural. Is that
Yeah.
right?" And she's like, "Yeah, technically, when you move out of the octave
Ah,
in that same measure,
Interesting.
it should actually be,
The accent only works in that
in the octave."
in the octave that you put it in. Ah, I did not know that. So that's
Oh, because it's on that line. It's written on that line.
So specifically, that F first space in the treble clef, if you put a sharp on that, that will last for every F to the end of the measure. But if you have an F on the fifth line, the top
Yeah.
one, or any other one for that matter,
Boom.
it doesn't count.
Well, giving you guys knowledge you didn't know you needed or wanted.
And if that is supposed to be a sharp, then you have to put another sharp.
Yes, you have to put
another
another
sharp
sharp
at the top. Ah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Mike. Hey, mahalo
on.
for being here. How round of applause to our guest, Mike. Always a fun time. Always a fun time. Hope you guys learned a thing or two about sharp ones. Just clarify, I'm trolling.
Sharp one episode.
All right. Check out ukuleleontheground.com for all your ukulele needs. You can check out our forums. You can check out our shop. You can check out our main Ukulele on the Ground website. And of course, check out UU Plus over at Ukulele on the Ground. And all of those will take your ukulele playing to that next level. Yeah. And you're like, oh, how does this shop take my ukulele playing to the next level? By getting yourself a nice next level ukulele. Okay.
And
So-
lessons.
And lessons. We do have lessons there, okay? Make sure you check out Aldrine.com if you want to learn how to play the ukulele on the island of Kauai. Or if you want just Aldrine merch, you can do that as well. And you're like, oh, how does that take my ukulele playing to the next level? Because when you're strolling in on that if you're strolling into your ukulele club with that Aldi Club shirt on, that's next level. I don't care how you play. It's next level move, right?
Yep.
And your store, Mike.
I work at Scotty's Music on the island of Kauai. We carry a bunch of different types of ukuleles, low end to high end. And most importantly, as you can come just talk music with us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you make a promise to the people right now
That I
you're
will never
not-
teach them guitar.
Yes,
with
no, you're not going to
ukulele
teach ukulele with a guitar.
I absolutely.
Okay, or bass.
Oh my god.
I would absolutely never teach an instrument without that instrument,
Yeah.
no matter what it is.
Would you ever teach U bass on bass? Even
It
that?
depends on what they're playing.
Yeah.
So, like, if I was teaching lessons to like a kid who's playing on a U bass,
Yeah.
I would play a U bass most likely.
Yeah, yeah.
Because then the scale does make a difference.
Yeah, yeah.
If I didn't have anything else, I would use my regular electric bass. But something I do make sure to do is whatever kind of bass they're playing in number of strings, I will make sure to have that one.
Oh yeah. So
So if someone's taking lessons from me on a 5-string bass, I will bring a 5-string
Yeah.
bass to the lesson.
yeah.
Otherwise, it just because like I know some guys who show up to bass, and I've had this where like I was taking a lesson on a 4-string and they bring a 6-string, and I'm just like, that's
Why'd you do that?
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I already have knowledge about bass, and that's still confusing.
Yeah.
What I want you to do is like I want somebody to book a ukulele lesson with you, and then you to bring a stand-up bass to the lesson.
4 strings, baby. That's
4 strings.
This is
I
how you
know.
play ukulele.
4 strings, and most of the notes are this. Not all, but most of them. Just in the wrong order.
We'll see you guys next time because, Friday is the next time you'll see us. So Friday for Aloha Friday live jam. Come check us out. Come to here on Ukulele on the Ground. We'll see you next time. Aloha. We love you. Okay, we love you. Bye.